pierwszy samolot zobaczyliśmy, zanim w ogóle jeszcze wyjechaliśmy z Wrocławia z naszego okna. A tutaj ruszamy już na Antidotum na pierwszy dzień, czyli na dzień treningowy. I zapraszam Was serdecznie do oglądania.
Ich pokaz jest piękny.
After some sighting passes, Solo Turk now starts its practice display. A very unconventional manoeuvre indeed to begin with, kicking the rudder to the left and right. Of the attributes of this jet, it was then so quickly adopted by everybody else.
Yes, with aircraft that could perform it without a lot of jockeying throttle. Slow speed class, we expect to see the aircraft setting up once again at fairly slow speed for a roll, this time with the undercarriage extended. Careful, of course, not to exceed the landing gear limiting speed on the airframe.
One of the more interesting things at the moment about the Turkish aviation industry is the real push to Gas 39C Gripen.
Of September 1943, providing high cover for RAF North America of those assembled to take part in the filming that was undertaken in Spain before the aerial unit decamped back to Britain. completed its first pass, the Spitfire 9.
Lecę na... Teczka?
Nie wiem. Albo pętla. Nie powiedzieli mi.
Nie, pętla. Pętla teraz się przewraca. To jest pętla.
Tak.
Chyba tam cię wracają.
On YouTube and indeed on big screens and over the public address system around the showground. There are only two places where you can watch and listen to Plains TV's live coverage tomorrow. One of them is the Plains TV.
Big Bees.
The team was founded in 2008.
Because it No, not at all, because it looks so much like an L39 of old in every other respect. Way of producing. Or not.
Flying at the front of that formation is Raven 1, Sid Shirley. He's a former RAF Tornado pilot, and in fact he could fly fast jets before he could drive. This is his 12th year leading the team. Alongside him is Raven 2, Bruce Buglas, who we were talking about earlier, and Raven 3 is Pete Wells. He's in his 5th year with the team, but he's been flying air shows for around 30 years. The team is now coming back in towards us, still in that delta formation for a wing over. Out to our right, the rest of the team is now coming in every second to hold position over the top of the roll. Out to our front, the synchro pair have their smoke on for another sequence of formation aerobatics. Raven 5, synchro number 2, is Russ Eatwell. He started learning to fly at the age... As the synchro pair complete that quarter clover, arriving from the left, the main formation. Far side of the formation is the final member of the team, Raven 6, Patrick Wilson. He's an airline pilot and corporate jet pilot, now in his 2nd year with the team.
Coś czego nam już
the smoke is standing out well. You can really see why it's called the cassette loop with those two circles of smoke in the sky. But now, look to the left 45 as the rest of the team of the inside of a barrel as they fly directly towards us. We've already seen one heart today, courtesy of the Baltic Bees. Well, now it's time for another. The synchro pair in from the front.
Ale nie widać, serduszko zniknęło. Nie, przycina, ale nie widać.
Nie, równo. No. O kurde.
Nice to see that experience being put to use.
Uważam podobnie, jednako właśnie protokół mniejszy, ale jedną wadą.
Well, now having taken to the runway, we have the Corsair from Flying Legends, that same organisation that provided Spitfire MH415 that we saw a little while ago.
Well, is that the Carbon Cub? Looks a bit like it.
I think you're right, but Ben, you're the one with the long legs.
It is the Red Bull Carbon Cub.
Two-ship routine with the Red Bull Balco 0105 as part of the main show.
Really, really fun aircraft, the Carbon. This aircraft was allocated to US Marine Corps Night Fighter Squadron VMF 513N, the Flying Nightmares, in February of 1952, and was assigned to the US 5th Air Force for operations in the Korean. Flew from Busan West Airfield in South Korea on night one by the name of Claude Simonadis, an ex-Corsair maintainer, bought it. But it took 3 more years from that point until 1994 for the aircraft to arrive. In fact, Ramon also has frontline experience on another later Vought naval fighter type.
Krąków 105.
Now fall silent for the next 10 minutes or so while all of this unfolds. Enjoy this.
Jest tam helikopter. nigdy nie było. Zawsze latywałem na pełno.
Roll.
Locator systems as well. Fighting aircraft. That conversion being carried out by the Canadian company Conair Aviation, and that really is the start of the Firecat story.
Yes, Conair bought a first pair of ex-Royal Canadian Navy track. Trackers that were converted by Conair went to France. They were very successful, deploying to different locations to fight fires, and at one stage
Probably by a matter of just a few days, but such is vintage aviation. These things do happen. Landing on now, the B-25 Mitchell.
much more besides.
But arriving now from the right, we have the Flying Bulls with the B-25 and the Corsair. know what is going on, and this Antonov has a tail. And the Bronco can't go that slow. It has much better low-speed handling than most other armed fixed-wing aircraft in the American inventory. And very quickly, the Antonov has taken a hit and seems to be struggling. Fortunately, there is a large open field below, and that is where it shall attempt to land. This will save the lives on those on board, but will severely impact the security of the mission, because little do they know, helicopters are already speeding towards the Antu's location. And with the aircraft suitably immobilised, it's time for the arrival of the helicopters.
Ej.
VIP transport with 4 seats, with the removal of the ejection seats and the installation of 4 conventional ones. No matter which role they were operating in, was absolutely at the tip of the Swedish Air Force's spear during the Cold War. Assets. There are no flying PZL 106s in Poland at the moment. Spray bars? Yes, remarkably designed to replace the much smaller Polycarpov Po-2 in that role. A diminutive little biplane. The Crook is a fascinating aeroplane. The name means raven, incidentally. The first flight of the prototype in 1973 was by an aircraft that looked very different to this. It had an American Lycoming engine and it had a T-tail. They then tested it with several different engines over several years before production actually began. The most visible difference being the reconfigured tail. And there were lots of models still with lots of different engines. There were turboprop Crooks as well. In fact, Airbus, which now
And then there's the M18, which has just broken off to our left.
sales and thus bringing in Western currency. And a very prominent buyer was the Hellenic Air Force, which still uses it.
Te dwa dromadery były.
They were only ever built as prototypes.
But a really versatile aircraft, can be fitted with a spray system for agricultural duties, as we're seeing demonstrated here. Alternatively, it can be used for water bombing, up to 2,000 feet.
It's incredible there was such a thing, the agricultural division of the East German State Airline Interfleet, called their Graf Club. And this one was converted into a dual control trainer, and it was destined for scrapping at Anklam Airfield in northeastern Germany. And in fact, it sat outside for almost a year when Dieter Gehlen will seat Crook. It's configured as a parachute jump platform.
Myślałem, że czepiera.
I gdzie tu muzyczka? To zawsze muzyczka była.
He's one of Poland's foremost aerobatic pilots, Luke Czepiela, but came from humble beginnings, volunteering to help at his local flying club in exchange for occasional free flights. Later, he assisted in demolishing an old airport building. He used the money that he earned to get his gliding license. After that, he moved to the UK and volunteered with the Honda Dream Team of pit specials, and at the same time, he learned to fly aerobatics. In 2010, he joined Grupa Akrobacyjna Żelazny, Poland's most famous. In 2017, he and Martin Schonka flew in formation under 3 bridges in Warsaw on Polish Flag Day. In 2019, he landed on a wooden pier to open the tourist season in the Polish holiday resort of Sopot. And in 2023, he shot to global prominence by landing a specially constructed Carbon Cub on the helipad of the Burj Al Arab in Dubai. And there, the Carbon Cub version of those rudder kicks that we saw from Solo Turk earlier. We were talking air-to-air, air-to-air service combat. That, like the Viggen, it has excellent stall performance, and it was designed to be rugged and dependable, needing minimal maintenance. Bolstering the fleet. Beautiful slow roll and a little bit of fuel venting at the end of the maneuver as well, which is always an interesting thing to see. But now the aircraft decelerating for its slow pass at 110 knots at a high angle of attack. The Gripen C is powered by the Volvo RM12 turbofan, which is a license-built version of the General Electric F404. It produces 18,000 pounds of thrust, and as the aircraft comes by, the afterburner will be engaged and the aircraft will conduct a climbing right-hand turn while accelerating. And tomorrow this will be a pyrotechnic display that takes It all goes back to the 1980s when a German aerobatic pilot and aircraft designer called Walter Extra was trying to improve upon the venerable Pitt Special, which was by then a 40-year-old design, but one which still dominated aerobatic competitions.
Jest malutki.
rzeczywiście może wtedy ściąć.
No, on ma wzmocniony wynik, że on jest nieruchomy, nie? No tu widać na telefonie, jak się nagrywa, że na tych łopatach ma to malowanie takie fajne.
No tak.
This manoeuvrability made possible by the design of its rotor blades and rotor head. Most helicopters have relatively rigid rotors connected by delicate hinges into the head, whereas the Bolko Bo 105 has flexible composite blades bolted directly into a rigid monoblock head. So it's the rotors themselves rather than the hinges that take the aerodynamic stresses and strains. Another asset to be used in the grand finale, also visible on the ground in front of Show Centre, the enormous Edge 540 remote control model of Luca Baumann is being prepared for its flight. Meanwhile, out in the far distance, in the very near future, a couple of TS-11 Iskras will shortly be entering the hold if they haven't already. This is a really complex combination of no fewer than 30, a real spectacle, and a display the likes of which has very rarely been attempted. There, coming into view, is the absolutely enormous underslung load that the Écureuil shall be carrying. That will tomorrow be loaded with enough pyrotechnics to fill a couple of minutes. A very weighty structure, as you can imagine, and so a ground crew is required using stabilizing ropes. And they will be making sure that it doesn't start to spin over the course of the display. And again, without going into everything in too much detail.
Jutro? A dzisiaj nie? No, liny trzymają.
Into the air goes that pyro firing system, and you can probably make out against the sky behind those stabilizing ropes which have now been released. And now the clock is ticking because there's only so long during which the helicopter can hover with this load underneath it.
Coś daj dzisiaj.
Na tych najwytrwalej, czekających do samego końca.
Światełka lat.
I nadszedł czas wrócić już do domu. Nastał wieczór, a zapraszam Was bardzo serdecznie na następne filmy, bo z pierwszego do drugiego dnia pokazów również będą vlogi. Do zobaczenia w następnym filmie, a tu jeszcze na koniec oczywiście rytualne sprawdzenie i nagranie, czy zamknięte są drzwi od mieszkania.